The Electoral Commission of South Africa, the IEC, is stepping up preparations for the local government elections with a key candidate list deadline approaching. The IEC has engaged traditional leaders, including CONTRALESA in Kempton Park in Gauteng, sharing its election roadmap ahead of the November polls. Political parties and independent candidates have until 5 p.m. on Friday to submit candidate lists. For more on today's engagement with traditional leaders, the candidate submission process and election preparations in general, let's speak now to Fikile Moya, who is General Manager for Communications at the IEC. Good evening to you, FNM. If you don't mind me calling you that, let's start with the importance of traditional leaders. There must be a reason why you are engaging them as one of the many stakeholders that you are engaging. Talk to me about the dynamic that you are seeking to address or perhaps to capitalize on in communities led by kings, queens, chiefs and the likes.
Good evening to us and good evening to the viewers. Indeed, in South Africa, we have millions of South Africans who live under traditional leadership and tribal authority jurisdictions. Therefore, as part of the broader stakeholder engagement, it is important to engage with this constituency as people who hold particular traditions and are respected, and their leadership in many ways guides communities one way or the other. So we thought it is important to also engage with them because elections do not happen in a vacuum, as you would know. They happen in particular geographic spaces, and some of those spaces are under the direct authority and leadership of traditional leaders. So that would be the broadly why we engaged with them today. We broadly engaged with CONTRALESA as we have engaged with other traditional leadership authorities before.
So there are a few challenges that your chairperson, Msutumi spoke about that perhaps they occur in other communities, but perhaps manifest in communities under traditional leadership. Talk to me about those challenges, the challenges that have to do with, just enhancing and ensuring that democracy thrives, the questions of access for various political parties, as well as safety issues.
Yeah. For example, one of the key issues that that recurs a lot is the fact that wards would be demarcated to split a traditional authority space between PEPs. You find that part of the ward falls under one traditional leader and the other part falls under a different traditional leader. And in some cases, you find that there are historical tensions between communities of one of the two spaces, where Impi for example, where now they are part of one ward, and the violence tends to spill over to the election day issues. But then there's also an issue of authority where traditional leaders would feel undermined by councillors they would say that the whatever platforms or programs that the councillors may be part of would have to be performed in an area that is under traditional leadership, and those and councillors do not always engage with traditional leadership respectfully, and they do not always regard traditional leaders as governments of sorts themselves. They treat traditional leaders as if they are just nice to have.
Yeah, and I suppose it's also important that whatever tensions have to do with service delivery issues in those communities are also managed with the leadership of traditional leaders. Because I imagine that in the build-up to November the 4th, and even on voting day, from past experience, an election day can be a platform on which communities may seek to actually sharpen and highlight their grievances? Is that partly what you are leaning on to say even that should be managed better with the participation of traditional leaders?
Absolutely, Tilas. Traditional leaders are more than just government. They are conflict management entities in their communities. They hold they are government. They are able to ensure that a particular community matches on the same path. They keep the unity of their embodiment of the unity of their particular communities. Therefore, they are not people to be taken lightly. They can ensure, and if treated with respect, they can ensure that communities participate, or if they choose not to, communities can even choose not to participate because their community leader is opposed to participation. So there are many dynamics. In some cases, traditional leadership would want the traditional community centers to be used as voting stations, and the commission has to make decisions about whether that is the best place
Yeah,
to have a voting station, and engage with traditional leaders
right.
to ensure that everyone has proper access to the voting station on election day.
So definitely an important stakeholder block. The last point that I wanted to explore with you is we've got a key deadline approaching at the end of this week. Talk to me about this deadline for the submission of political party and independent candidates lists.
Yeah, 5 o'clock on Friday is deadline, not a minute past 5. It doesn't matter whose number you have or you don't have. Submissions must have been made by 1700 South African time, and that is why we have been encouraging parties to ensure that they do not wait until the last minute to submit their list. The online registration portal has been open since late June to ensure that parties and candidates do not have to wait until, we did not even wait until August 7 when elections were proclaimed,
Yeah.
to ensure that people have access, parties and candidates have access to this portal, and all they need to do is press send as soon as possible. So there will be no grace, there will be no reason for parties to be late past after 5 o'clock. Nothing, no submission will be entertained, because it is it is an act of law
Yeah.
that parties must have submitted their names, and candidates must have submitted their names by 5 o'clock on Friday.
And very briefly, the online portal, is that your main route one method of submission, or will you be making provision for parties rushing to your offices in Centurion?
Parties can submit physically at any local office. The online is one of the portals available, but online, as you would know, in South Africa is not an equal space. So to equalize access, parties can go to their nearest IEC office
Yeah.
and submit physically their registration.
All right, let's leave it there. It's good to see you. Fikile Moya, IEC General Manager for Communications, talking to us about stakeholder engagement, but also to you, political parties and independent candidates. The clock is ticking. Friday, 5 p.m., and not 1 minute past 5, to quote Fikile there.